Hey everybody, Michelle with 1L here from Bakes by Vasco. Have you ever wondered why I hold up one hand in the shape of an L when I say my name? It's because for 55 years I have had to spell my name in some form or another, and it just got to be habit. So, I'm Michelle with 1L. Today it's cold, it's raining, it's dreary here in north central Illinois, late July. Perfect day for baking a classic cobbler. So that's what we're going to do today is bake a blackberry plum cobbler. The first thing you're going to need is your filling. Like I said, we're going to use plums and blackberries, but you can use any stone fruit or any berry that's currently in season. I just happen to prefer these. So we're going to need about 1 pound of plums, which once we pit and slice them will be about 2 cups. 1 cup of blackberries, which I just picked these a few days ago. A 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. A tablespoon of cornstarch, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, a pinch of nutmeg, a 1/2 tablespoon of lemon juice, and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. All right, we now have our 1 pound of plums, which comes out to about 2 cups. They are sliced and pitted after they were peeled, and I'm going to give you a little tip professionally. If you want an easy way to peel these, you need to boil a large pot of water and cut a tiny X in the non-stem end of them, just enough to break the skin, and then boil them for 15 to 30 seconds, depending on how hard, firm, ripe your plums are, and then pull them out and immediately dump them into an ice bath. And when they are cool enough to handle, pull them out and the skin will just fall off. If you can't get it to peel easily still, use a vegetable peeler and it works great. So there's our plums, and now we've got our blackberries. These I just picked the other day at one of our favorite walk-in lakes, and since they're fresh, I put them in a 1 cup of vinegar and 3 parts of cool water and let them soak for about 30 minutes to make sure there were no bugs or dirt or anything in them. And then I rinsed them in cool water in the colander completely to get all traces of anything out of them. And now we've got a cup of fresh blackberries to add to our plums. Now just take your hands and gently combine your fruit because you don't want to bruise it with a utensil. Now, in a small bowl, we're going to take a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, our cornstarch, and our cinnamon and pinch of nutmeg, and whisk that together, making sure no lumps and making sure it's all incorporated. And then this sugar mixture gets dumped onto your fruit. And again with your fingers, just toss to coat. And it already smells wonderful with those warm spices and those plums being just a little warm from blanching them to peel. You already have a very appealing dessert going on. So there's that. Now to that mixture, you're going to add your lemon juice and your vanilla. And once again, just toss it gently to coat. If you don't want to use your hands, you can use a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula. Just be very gentle so you don't bruise your fruit. And there are your blackberry and plums for your cobbler filling. Now let me wash my hands and we'll move on to the filling. We'll move on to the topping part. Now we're going to make a classic cobbler top, and what you're going to need for that is 3/4 cups all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup granulated sugar, 1½ teaspoons baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon salt, a 1/4 cup, which is 4 tablespoons of butter, very cold, I'm using salted, a 1/4 cup of milk, and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. All right, we set the plums and blackberries aside, and now we're going to make our topping. This is a classic crumble topping that you can use with any kind of fruit that you want. Like I said, it's peach season, it's stone fruit season. You can use peaches, you can use apricots, cherries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, whatever you want. I just am a fan of purple and those two fruits, and that's what we're using. So, but the main thing is the crumb. Like I said, this is just a classic cobbler. So we're going to start with our 3/4 cups of flour in a medium bowl. Add our 1½ teaspoons of baking powder and our 1/4 cup of sugar, and just whisk that together. Just make sure it's all mixed, incorporated, and no lumps. Then you're going to want to take very cold butter. I'm talking like it just came out of the freezer butter. And I have a tip to cut this into your flour mixture. Take a cheese grater, if using the big holes, and just grate the cheese, grate the butter like cheese, grate the butter cold into your flour mixture. You really want the cold butter to melt while it's cooking, and that's what gives it that poor man's cobbler effect. It's taking so long. This is taking so long. But it will be worth it when it's done. Be worth it when it's done. As I'm still grating the butter into the dough, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Come back and see what we're doing next time. Got a lot of fun things that I want to try for you coming up. And I hope that you will tag along and see what kind of adventures we get up to. All right, we are about to the end of where I can safely grate this. So I'm just going to give the grater up, scrape everything off the back. And move on to the next step, which is just taking a fork and mixing this together. Then you want to make a well in the center. Makes a hole. Pour in your vanilla and pour in your milk. And then again with your fork, just mix it together until you've got a shaggy dough. You don't want a batter, you just want crumblies. And there you go. We're now ready to assemble our Blackberry Plum cobbler. All right, everybody, we have our fruit ready, we have our topping ready, and the oven is preheated to 375 degrees, and I have my baking dish is an 11 by 7 rectangle. I have given it a little dash of butter spray, which you want to grease your baking dish. Could be an 8 by 8 square, whatever you have that's approximately this size for what you're using. And you want to place that baking dish on a baking sheet. Then you just want to take your sugared sliced fruit and berries and just pour that in the bottom of your greased bowl. Smooth them out a little bit. And then you'll just take your topping and drop it by spoonfuls in little batches all across the top. This is not a traditional pie or cake where the topping is going to completely cover it. You'll have some bits of fruit poking out, and that's the beauty of a cobbler, is the fruit does get to shine as much as the batter itself. I like to make cobblers a few times a year. When my mom was still alive, very little did I get a lot of time to spend with cooking or baking with her because of my music. But I needed a dish to take to a bunch of potluck things I had to go to, a bunch of grown-up events. And I asked her if I bought the ingredients, would she make her blueberry peach cobbler for me, because it was yummy and I loved it and I figured everybody'd like it too. And she said, no, I won't bake it for you, but I will teach you to bake it. And I kind of rolled my eyes, but I baked blueberry peach cobbler with my mom. And it became one of the things I was really good at, and I was really proud to show her every time I had a party to go to and when they turned out good and I came back with an empty baking dish. So that's where we're doing the cobbler today. It's one of the first things I learned how to bake. And here we go. Our topping is now on. Our cobbler is ready to go in your 375-degree oven. And we'll bake that for 35 to 45 minutes until everything is golden and bubbly. So our timer went off at 35 minutes and I checked it, but the top was still light. So we let it go for another 10 minutes, making for 45, and it still wasn't the way I wanted it to look. So I took it out of the oven and I adjusted the rack up one to make it closer to the top burner. And after 55 minutes, we have a bubbly fruit, nicely browned cobbler top blackberry plum cobbler. Now we just need to let that cool for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll get to the best part. As always, the best part of anything I bake is the eating. See you next time, guys.